Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online regulation C VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I wanted to try out a team featuring Oranguru. This team finished 6 out of 675 competitors at the Hartford Regional Championships, which took place in May, and the idea is that Oranguru synergizes really nicely with Pokemon like Iron Hands as well as Ting. The idea is you have telepathy, and so Ting can Earthquake safely next to Oranguru, and Oranguru can Instruct to allow you to get multiple attacks off. The Oranguru in particular synergizes really nicely with Iron Hands, as you can Instruct to give yourself multiple Sword Stance boosts, and the Iron Hands can just heal back pretty consistently thanks to Drain Punch and deal really good damage with Thunder Punch as well. This team just has a lot of bulk to work with. You've also got Grimmsnarl with dual screens, Amoonguss for Pollen Puff and Spore support, and Nasty Plot, Water Terra leftovers, Golden Go. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down below. And thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoy, I'd really appreciate if you consider leaving a like on the video or subscribing to the channel. Really helps out a ton. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, breaking down the team, of course the first Pokemon I want to highlight here is Oranguru. Now, Oranguru is really nice in combination with Iron Hands and Ting, as I mentioned, and that's for a couple reasons. With Ting, you can just keep clicking Earthquake while using Instruct to get multiple Earthquakes off in a turn. This Ting is very specially defensive, as you can see, and it's honestly really hard to KO Ting quickly. Most of the times, people will be using super effective attacks into it, whether it be something like a Dazzling Gleam or a Moonblast from Fluttermane, and so with Weakness Policy, often you can trade against Fluttermane where maybe they do a ton of damage to you, but then a policy activates and you can just KO them in return. Oranguru Ting is actually a really compelling lead with this team, where you can just often like bait the damage into Ting, activate Weakness Policy, Earthquake, get KO, and set up Trick Room, and then you can really just start sweeping from there. And so the Mental Orb here exists because Taunt's pretty common in the format, especially on something like Gyarados right now, so having a way to get around that is really valuable. The main thing to note about this Oranguru is that it does not actually have any offensive attacks. Instead, you've got Encore. Encore is really helpful because often a lot of players, when Trick Room is set up, will try to protect in front of you. So if they try to protect, then you can just take advantage of that and Encore them. It's also really valuable into like Dondozo matchups, where I've used Oranguru and Amoonguss specifically to Spore, Encore, Clear Smog. You have a lot of tools against Dondozo between Oranguru and Amoonguss. But the general idea behind Oranguru, of course, is you can lead it, you can pressure with Trick Room, and it's a really bulky Pokemon. Poison Terra just helps you resist a couple of types like Fairy, obviously, and the Oranguru just synergizes really nicely with Hands and Ting in particular. So Ting here is a Weakness Policy set. You're not really going to be able to self-activate it that easily. You could like side Spirit Break or side Drain Punch, but for the most of the part, you're going to be relying on your opponent to set it up, but that's okay, right? And Ting, honestly, without Weakness Policy, can still do decent damage when you have Instruct. Just don't expect it to be picking up like big one-hit KOs unless the policy is actually set up. But pretty straightforward moveset here. Hands is also really interesting. I think this Pokemon has been really rising in usage in the format recently, and the Sword Stance set with Safety Goggles in particular is really powerful because it can just stay on the field and sustain really nicely thanks to Drain Punch. As you'll notice here, Oranguru is exactly 1 speed point higher than the Iron Hands, and so when Trick Room is set up, Hands will move first, and then Oranguru can just Instruct. That allows you to go for something like a Drain Punch into another Drain Punch or Thunder Punch into another Thunder Punch. One other fun thing you can do with this team is like Hands Sword Stances outside of Trick Room. Oranguru's out next to it, so the next turn it can Instruct the Sword Stance, and then Hands can get a +4 Thunder Punch or Drain Punch off instead of a +2 attack. So that's one of my favorite combos with this team personally. To round things out, you've got Amoonguss. This Amoonguss is fairly straightforward. The main thing to note, though, is that it's actually pretty much max HP, max defense. You'll notice there's actually a little bit of speed investment here as well, and that's just to give you an edge against opposing Amoongusses should they commit their Terra, and otherwise it's just max HP, max defense to optimize for the Dondozo matchup. Dondozo is a complete nightmare for this team to deal with otherwise because you rely on so many boosting attacks, and if they have Unaware, that's obviously a huge problem, but Amoonguss here is really nice because it can clear Smog, and very few Dondozos run Substitute these days, and so this gives you a really nice answer into Dozo specifically. And with Ting on the team, you can afford to drop some special defense bulk, right? Because Ting can drop your opponent's special attack. The main thing to also note is that the Amoonguss, obviously, by running Clear Smog, does not have Protect, so keep that in mind. Finally, you've got Water Terra, Nasty Plot, Leftovers, Golden Go. This is a set that's been definitely rising, I feel like, in the last couple of weeks, and it's funny to see how Golden Go's sets have really evolved throughout this meta as well as Scarlet and Violet in general. A lot of people shifting away from choice specs. This set is just really bulky, right? You can go like Grim Golden Go, set up screens, start Nasty Plotting, Amoonguss Golden Go, obviously, to redirect and sustain. Leftovers is really nice. This Pokemon can stay on the field for a really long time, and after just a single Nasty Plot, it does so much damage. So Water Terra is just really important important for it to, survive super effective attacks, whether it be like fire type attacks, for example, especially given how common Chi-Yu is in the format right now. And finally, you've got Grimmsnarl. This is, of course, one of the most popular Pokemon from the previous generation. It's really solid. The main idea is you have so much bulk with this team. You have a lot of setup. Games are going to go on for a long time, so you want to just set up your screens and then really go from there. So pretty straightforward with this team. A lot of different combos that you can go with. I really like to consider like Oranguru Ting-Lu or Oranguru Iron Hands if I feel like they don't have too much offense to knock out either Pokemon from the lead matchup. I think Grimm Iron Hands, Grimm Golden Goat, Grimm Ting-Lu is all really solid, where you just start setting up your screens and start setting up with these Pokemon. Amoonguss Golden Go, Amoonguss Hands, I think are both really viable lead combinations as well. And then I think like Grimm Oranguru is really interesting, and I don't use that lead as much, but I think it can be viable if you really want to prioritize setting up your screens as well as Trick Room. It's a really bulky duo, obviously, and you like, but the main thing is it's pretty passive, so you kind of have to like manually switch or go for a parting shot, and obviously you put yourself at risk of taking some damage with whatever Pokemon you're bringing in, so keep that in mind. And the last thing I'll note is that Golden Go has leftovers, Iron Heads has Strain Punch, but Ting-Lu doesn't have any recovery. However, obviously Amoonguss has Pollen Puff, so sometimes with this team you take a lot of damage, but a single Pollen Puff can mitigate a lot of the work that your opponent does against you, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's it for a quick breakdown. Let's quickly highlight some weaknesses. So for weaknesses, the first thing that I'll call out is that this team obviously relies a lot on boosting, right? You've got the Nasty Plot, the Sword Stance, as well as the Weakness Policy. So if you have a team or any moves that can stop boosting or get rid of boosts, that can give you a huge advantage. I have fought against Clear Smog Amoonguss actually a couple times while using this team, and I didn't realize just how quickly it was rising in usage, and that gave me a ton of trouble because essentially my opponent would have Spore Pressure, but they'd also have Clear Smog, and I would set up Trick Room, and then they could just like Clear Smog my Iron Hands before I even get a chance to move. And so yeah, ways to get rid of boosts are really valuable. Playing around Ting-Lu's Weakness Policy obviously can be really critical as well. One thing to know with Iron Hands here is that it's Fire Terra, so ground type attacks in Pokemon can be really valuable because you'll always be able to hit it for super effective. And with Iron Hands, like denying it the ability to heal up is pretty huge. So if you have like a ghost type Pokemon, that can be really huge, right? Switching in a Flutter Mane, for example. Annihilate in particular is actually the Pokemon I've struggled against the most while using this team, specifically Mouseape. I think with Mouseape, there's just no way to really deny the beat up because if they have safety goggles on Mousehold, because Amoonguss can't redirect, the beat up away. And so with Mouseape, they can just immediately stack up Annihilate and then go from there. And I've struggled a lot against that combo because like screens from Grimmsnarl sometimes isn't as valuable because Mousehold often uses Super Fang, and then Annihilate can obviously bulk up as well. And that's the other thing, like opposing teams that have setup as well, that can outpace the setup of this team, can also be pretty scary. So definitely struggled against that. Dondozo, I think I was struggling against a lot until I realized you kind of just have to utilize Amoonguss plus Oranguru, like Encore plus Clear Smog to kind of brute force your way through it. Obviously Unaware in general can be pretty annoying, so interestingly enough, like the Dondozo Tatsu-Kiri combination is actually not as scary for this team, but just like regular bulky Dozo, those Unaware sets that stay on the field for a long time, they have leftovers, they have Wave Crash, they have Yawn, that can actually be pretty disruptive for this team. So that's also one thing to pay attention to. And finally, the last thing I'll note is that this is a really bulky team. Games will go on for a longer period of time, but as a result, you often leave yourself a little bit more vulnerable to status conditions or critical hits, for example. You will often be attacking second with this team unless you set up Trick Room, and Trick Room obviously doesn't last for forever either. And so keep that in mind, especially if you're trying to play multiple games with this team in one sitting, because there can be a lot of things that don't go your way with this team, whether it be like a bad critical hit. I had one game where I think it was like a 20-minute game, had this perfect setup, but one single crit essentially ruined everything. And so yeah, just keep that in mind and think about your mental ability to handle bad RNG like that as well. So yeah, that's it for weaknesses. Let's get started. All right, we've got Chimpao Dragonite, not Dragonite, Garchomp. I'm just too accustomed to saying Dragonite. Scizor, Gyarados, Farigiraf, and Iron Hands. Interesting. So what do we want to lean into the most here? I'm personally interested in Oranguru. I mean, Garchomp's pretty annoying, but I could reflect with Grimm. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm honestly thinking Grimm Hands with Oranguru in the back and then Ting-Lu. The idea is like I can set up early screens for Hands. Hands can start Swords Dancing immediately, pivot into the Oranguru, set up Trick Room, and then go from there. If we knock out Gyarados, or if Gyarados isn't brought, Ting-Lu is also just pretty valuable with Earthquake next to the Oranguru and Instruct. So, let's see. What did they bring out? Hands and Scizor. Okay. Could fake out Bullet Punch here. Don't think Bullet Punch should KO Grim. Unless you're, like, banded. So, I'm down to Reflect and just Swords Dance here. I think one question I'll have here is whether or not their hands has any speed investment, because one thing to be a little bit wary of with this team is actually setting up Trick Room if you're going up against an opposing hands, because this hands has a little bit of speed investment. So if your opponent doesn't have any speed investment with hands, they'll outpace you under Trick Room, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because them moving first means that you can just like take damage and then heal back up with Drain Punch, but just some food for thought. Hands is going to switch out, which I think is a great sign. Gyarados. Farigiraf. Okay, that works. It is just Bullet Punch. Does that one-shot us? It actually does. Wow. It makes me think you're Life Orb or Banded. I don't see an item, but... with that, I'm down to just bring out Oranguru. And with the Oranguru, I'm curious if they try to imprison me. There might also be a Psyshock onto hands. Fire Terra doesn't seem terrible. What's kind of cool here is I can actually Instruct into hands and then just Drain Punch. Yeah, I'm down for that. Scizor switches. I'm like fairly short Choice Banded if it was one-shotting Grimmsnarl like that. Alright, they bring out Gyarados. So Thunder Punch from hands, obviously looking pretty strong. I'd love to see an Imprison from Farigiraf this turn. But this is one of the cool things with the Oranguru. I get to Instruct to get a Swords Dance boost for free. So get boosted immediately there. +3 now. And just Drain Punch. Nice. Oh, I'm so happy to show that combo. That's awesome. Cool. This also means they didn't bring Garchomp, so they are looking pretty weak into Iron Hands right now. This is one of the most fun things, I think, with this team, with the Oranguru Hands combo. So they bring out Scizor. I think with that, I'm pretty happy to just Terra here, Poison, so you can't really do too much damage to me. Trick Room here, and then just Detect. Like, my hands is so boosted right now. They switch out Gyarados, which is fine. It does mean they could potentially fake me out next turn, but it's okay. At this point, for example, like Thunder Punch into the Scizor slot is really safe. I have Encore with Oranguru, which can also be a nightmare for them to deal with hands. I think I honestly probably could have just attacked with my Iron Hands this turn. I just didn't really want to risk anything too crazy. I don't know, like Ground Terra, Terra Blast from Scizor. And this play felt really safe to me. Okay, they go for U-turn. Yep. But I survive. Yeah, and this is fine, right? Like, I'm happy to just launch Thunder Punch right now with hands. Their hands isn't really as scary. And Encore here from my Oranguru is such a good move into their hands. So Intimidate. And get Trick Room up. And it's like they can keep cycling Intimidate, but how are you actually going to knock out my Iron Hands at this point, right? I'm still at +2 attack. The main thing is they haven't Terra'd yet, so I got to keep that in mind. Here I'm down to Encore into hands, because I think there's a chance they click something like Fake Out or Swords Dance and just Thunder Punch into Gyarados. I wouldn't be surprised if Gyarados pivots back out once again, but yeah. That play just generally felt safe, although if I had honestly just taken the risk and attacked with the hand slot and just Thunder Punch into Scizor, that would have been super strong. But there's Fake Out, as I mentioned. Cool. And now you're Encored into Fake Out. Beautiful. So what is Gyarados going for here? Maybe Taunt, Waterfall. Perfect. And we have the Immental Orb. Nice. Okay, so you think hands has to switch out now, right? Hands has to switch out. So, like, Drain Punch, Instruct Drain Punch onto that slot is really safe. I also don't hate trying to knock out Gyarados here. Thunder Punch, Instruct, Thunder Punch. If this is Ground Terra, that kind of gets interesting. Scissor's not really that scary, quite frankly. 3 turns of Trick Room. Okay, if they're Ground Terra, so be it. It's not that common on Gyarados. I'm going to just Thunder Punch the Gyarados slot. Oh. I think that just loses them the game immediately, honestly. I can see what they were going for here, though. The idea was, I think, they were like, hey, it's so obvious that my hands has to switch out here, so you're going to just knock out that slot. But the problem in going for that is, yeah, like, I targeted Gyarados for a couple of reasons. One, Gyarados is just a little bit more annoying, given that I have Ting in the back, right? 2, Gyarados, I think, is, you know, pretty rarely does Gyarados carry Protect. Sorry, I was like trying to figure out what to say with my words there. Rarely does Gyarados carry Protect. It's often Waterfall, Taunt, Thunder Wave, and a 4th move like Terra Blast, for example, Icy Wind. Protect is on some sets, so, you know, it's not like it's never on Gyarados, but it feels generally not super common. So Hands is still encored for another turn as well as another turn of Trick Room. Yeah, I mean, this slot is just rendered fairly useless. This thing still hasn't Terra'd. But it's pretty hard for Gyarados to win a 3v1 right now. I'm honestly down to just Instruct Hands, Drain Punch into it, knowing that I can just knock it out next turn. Gyarados is not exactly a super offensive threat, and if it goes for... Like, Dragon Dance is, like, the only thing I'd be worried about right now, I'd say. But by going for this, the next turn, by the way, I can just go for Thunder Punch, Instruct. Because Thunder... unless there's Citrus Berry here with Hands. But good decision to not Terra Gyarados or Protect there. Because, yeah, I could have Thunder Punched that slot, obviously. Alright, they just end up taunting. Yeah, that's fine. Gyarados isn't exactly the most offensive Pokemon, which is why I feel safe making these plays. So now I'm happy to just pivot out into Ting. And then we'll go for the KO onto the Hands. And then it'll be a 3v1. I have Weakness Policy Ting as well, so if you end up waterfalling me, you'll probably just end up activating the Weakness Policy. So this was such a good game to highlight how good Oranguru plus Hands could be. And even though I lost Grimmsnarl for nothing, a single Sword Stance on this Hands really gets the ball rolling. And... yeah, we got to feature everything about the Oranguru, right? Like, Encore was so huge in Iron Hands. Swords Dance on my end was obviously huge. Instruct was incredible throughout the course of this battle as well, just picking up these knockouts and doing so much damage. So, they're finally going to commit the Terra here. I am curious as to what it is. Flying Terra, I think, is likely Steel Terra. Oh, it's actually Water Terra. Okay. That's pretty cool. Even with that, I'm not sure you KO with the Waterfall, but we'll see. By the way, I keep targeting around the Gyarados just because, like, I know that this hand slot is useless for now. I guess one thing I could consider is that Trick Room is expiring. The main thing is I just didn't feel like they were ever going to Terra that slot. So, there's Waterfall into Hands. Yeah, that does not do that much damage. Hands is just too bulky. Trick Room expires. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm down to just Throat Chop now and Thunder Punch into this. Like, you just can't knock out both Pokemon. This is the thing, right? Like, most Gyaradoses don't really run attack investment. So, now we get Thunder Punch, and that's just a one-hit KO. Beautiful. This was honestly the perfect demonstration of how good Hands and Oranguru can be as a combo when used correctly. So, I'm really, really happy to showcase the duo, right? Like, Instruct is just so nice in getting some quick boosts with Hands. And so, yeah, we were able to... I think what was really fun about this game was leveraging Oranguru both inside and outside of Trick Room, because you can do some really fun things with it even before Trick Room is set up, right? Like, Hands goes for an attack, Oranguru comes out and then just instructs it to give it another attack, right? So using that with Sword Stance in particular is a really fun combination. But yeah, I think the main thing in this match is with Mentorb, I felt like it was pretty safe for Oranguru to set up Trick Room. Poison Terra was just to ensure that the Scizor didn't get a one-hit knockout onto us, and after that, we were super well positioned. And I think the main thing in this game was like being able to encore the Hands as soon as I clicked Fake Out, covering for that option, and then my opponent just staying with Hands, and then me knocking out Scizor immediately. I think the thought process from there, and like I said, was expecting me to target the hand slot, saying, okay, I'll get Scizor in for free. Also, if I didn't instruct that turn, then Scizor could survive the turn, and then you can pivot Hands out. But by getting the knockout with that Thunder Punch combo with Instruct, I felt like the game was immediately just locked up at that point, right? And that's how strong Encore can be. It can really lock up games for you. So, yeah, that is why you want to use Oranguru in this format. Okay, interesting team. Flutterbacks, Chimpao, Brute Bonnet, Ceruledge, and Tusk. What do I want to do against this? I mean, it feels like Ting Lu can really clear through this team if I get Trick Room up. The question, though, is how do I actually get Trick Room up? I'm mainly worried about like Brute Bonnet's ability to hit Oranguru for super effective or put me to sleep. They just have so much immediate offense. Ting Lu Oranguru, like I feel like I kind of need to set up screens here. I don't normally go with Grim Oranguru, but I honestly think that might be it here. Ting Lu. Hands? Amoonguss? I'm gonna go with hands. Yeah, like, my idea here is if I get Trick Room up, I should be well positioned. I think, like, what's scary is that they lead Brute Bonnet, but if they lead Bonnet, I can probably pivot out into my hands. I think Ting Lu Instruct can just sweep through this team. Okay, it's Flutter and Chimpao. I don't mind that too much, honestly. Can start with Light Screen here. I think Light Screen Protect turn 1. I'm mainly now worried about Imprison, Trick Room, Flutter. But we're going to see a Terra commitment here. Okay. Chimpao, is that Dark? Ghost. Okay. Ghost, mainly I would say is to avoid a Fake Out there on turn 1. But yeah, I'm not clicking Fake Out here. So the fact we get them to commit their Terra this early, I'd say is good. It also means they can offensively Terra the Flutter, and I can Parting Shot Chimpao now because it's not Dark type. Spinner. Yep. So that was their Trick Room solution. It was to reverse my own Trick Room. Wow, wow, wow. Okay. Well, I'll take it. It is a free Reflect, but I was gonna say if Grimmsnarl were slower here, I could Spirit Break. Instruct Spirit Break. Set up Reflect. Okay, so I'm clicking Encore here, and you're probably wondering why. Now, the Flutter, I think, is pretty much always clicking... Oh, you know, I could have gone Trick Room to reverse their Trick Room. But basically, by clicking Encore here, like, Flutter is going to reverse Trick Room, but now it guarantees that they're going to switch more or less next turn. I don't think Spinner should do more than half, right? Okay, nice. Oh, and it's Life Orb, too. So now this is where the game gets really interesting, because basically my idea here was I can go for... Parting Shot now onto Chimpao and then Trick Room. Because you would think their Flutter is going to switch. Now, a crazy nice play from their end would be to stay in with Flutter right now. But if I get this turn right, I force Flutter to switch out, I get Ting Lu out for free, we're just really well set up with Earthquake, Instruct, Earthquake. Chimpao's the one switching. Okay. That means you're not putting on any offensive pressure. Into Tusk. Yeah, that's fine. Booster Tusk. Speed. Okay. Really nice decision to stay in with Flutter. This is such an interesting game. But I honestly think we're pretty well positioned right now still, so I'll take it. Yeah, this is a free switch into Ting Lu now. And they do not have any appropriate responses to Earthquake right now. This is hilarious. They actually really needed to get that turn right, by the way. So kudos to them for, yeah, staying in with Flutter. It's not an easy play to make. I'm honestly happy to just click Earthquake here. And I'm going to click Trick Room again. Like, they have to keep calling it right with Flutter. One wrong turn messes them up. If they end up close combating into us and they switch out, beautiful. Now it should just be Ting Lu Earthquake spam with the Oranguru. With Reflect and the -1 drop from Parting Shot, there's no way this is KOing other Pokemon. Brick Break is pretty cool, though. That's actually a pretty huge tech for them to have, because it does get rid of my screens. Honestly, have never seen Brick Break on Tusk, so that's interesting, but the thing is now I'm taking advantage of your defense drop. And we get Trick Room up. Now it's just Earthquake, Instruct, Earthquake. I don't really see how they get around this, honestly. Like, there's no ground resistance through immunity, and there's no flying potential now from their end. So Earthquake and Instruct. So even though they had the Brick Break tech, I still feel really well positioned, honestly. And this is what Oranguru plus Ting Lu can do. We featured Iron Hands earlier. Now we get to feature this combo. They're probably just double protecting here. Yeah, that's fine. I think, like, they're losing so many resources at this point, right? And this play is just so safe. There's really nothing they can do to cover for it. I still have a fully healthy Ting Lu, a fully healthy Iron Hands, and Grimmsnarl to set up screens again if I want to. And I haven't Terra'd yet either. So, just got to go through the motions right now, but I'm pretty happy about how I set this up. Okay. And yeah, like, I'd say Grimm and Oranguru isn't like a super conventional lead with this team, but I thought it made sense in this matchup, so pretty happy with its performance overall. I'll just go for the same play here. This is where, like, it'd be nice to have some way to self-activate weakness policy, right? But it's fine. Like, Earthquake, Instruct, Earthquake is effectively the same thing, or same amount of damage. I think if you're my opponent, you maybe switch out Shampoo, yeah, so you don't have that defense drop, but that Parting Shot earlier just also makes it harder for Tusk. And if they end up clicking Close Combat, you activate weakness policy on my end as well. So, you know, if Earthquake actually KOs now without the defense drop. Oh, with the crit it will. Yeah, honestly, I think without the crit, maybe they would have survived, but I don't think Tusk was really doing that much damage, right? You either maybe KO Oranguru, which gives me a free switch in, or you close combat into Ting Lu, which would activate weakness policy. But by me getting that crit, it denies them the chance of critting my side, right? So, yeah, that was lucky. I think you crit the Tusk there, I'm pretty sure. Instead of the Flutter. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was on Tusk. So, this kind of highlights the principle of moving first, right? When you move first, you just give yourself more chances of good fortune, good RNG. And yeah, this is exactly what Oranguru plus Ting Lu can do. 2 turns of Trick Room. With this having Encore, yeah, honestly just EQ Instruct again. And my opponent forfeits. So this is what this team can do really well, right? If you commit a Terra out from your opponent and it's like they don't have any flying resistances or immunities, and like, you know, on this team, like, they really just had no resistances. Or sorry, I said flying, I meant ground. If you look at their team, there was just no answer to Earthquake to begin with. So the best response would maybe be a Flying Terra. It was interesting that they felt the need to, like, commit their Ghost Terra on turn 1, but you could see they were really just trying to shut down the Oranguru. And having Protect on this Oranguru is really nice, because I think a lot of players get baited into thinking Oranguru doesn't have Protect. And so by protecting, we diverted a lot of pressure away on turn 1, managed to, you know, set up our screens. And it was interesting. You could tell that their team was pretty Trick Room weak, so their solution to Trick Room was setting up Trick Room with Flutter, but as a result, it kind of just completely messed up their strategy. And Oranguru with the Yonker was super valuable in locking the Flutter as well. And I figured as soon as I get Trick Room up, I should be really well positioned to sweep, and that was exactly it. And we didn't even need to bring Iron Hands, and even though they had that Brick Break tech, yeah, we were so far ahead in that one. And I think Ting Lu was just super well positioned to beat their entire team. If we didn't get that crit on Tusk, like, yeah, maybe they get a close combat onto Ting Lu. I take like half my health, activates the weakness policy, but I still feel pretty confident from that position, especially because, like, Encore is so nice because, you know, a lot of players will try to protect to stall out Trick Room, but then you can just Encore lock them, which is obviously super valuable. So, yeah. Oh boy. Mouse Ape got to tell Sylveon, Scizor, and Bundle. Huh. This is really scary. Like, inability to switch against Scott is tough. Mouse Ape in general is tough as well. Now, normally against Mouse Ape, I go, like, Oranguru, Ting Lu, or, like, Grimmsnarl, Ting Lu, set up a screen, pivot out. Ting Lu feels like it can be decent here, right? I'm really worried about bringing Oranguru and just having it trapped in. Golden Go actually feels like the most consistent route. If I'm my opponent, I'm honestly leading Mouse Ape, though. And against Mouse Ape, I think we could go, like, Grimmsnarl, Ting Lu, Reflect, and just start attacking. Yeah, this is such an interesting team. I honestly don't know what the best approach is here. Alright, I'm gonna go with the Oranguru. Sorry, Grimmsnarl, Ting Lu, Oranguru, Golden Go. But I honestly have very little experience fighting against a comp like this. Like, my opponent's team is fairly unorthodox, right? Like, Mouse Ape is obviously, like, common duo, and then Bundle's good as well. But Sylveon, Scizor, and Gothitelle, all really interesting to see. And I think playing against Gothitelle in general is already tricky, but when you throw on, like, a more established archetype like Mouse Ape, becomes even more interesting. So they're going to go with that. The idea behind my lead here, by the way, is that, like, you can bulk up, but I can at least reflect, and there's a decent chance they end up activating Policy on Ting Lu. So I'll go for Reflect to start. I think I want to go Reflect and then Protect here. And then pivot Grim out into Oranguru, and then, like, maybe Earthquake. And part of the reason for the Protect there is because I think, like, Mouse often might click Super Fang in that position. But they just go for Beat Up, okay. I mean, it's fine. Like, Rage Fist hurts, but we resist it with both of our current Pokemon, and Oranguru is immune to it. So I feel like this is my best response to Rage Fist. I could bulk up turn 1, though. Okay, nicely done. So I'm going to just pivot out into Oranguru straight up right now and actually just launch an Earthquake. The hope is that they end up activating our Weakness Policy. That would be ideal. Then I could consider going for, like, a Terra. You know, I can also obviously try to Trick Room with Oranguru and then start spamming Earthquake. But that is the worst move to run into. Oh, this is a nightmare. I was like, how did you do that much damage with Reflect up? I'm going to be honest. I don't think I can win this. That was the worst kind of combo to run into. Like, the fact this has Encore and that crit Drain Punch. Yeah. I think Annihilate is honestly one of the worst matchups for this team. I've struggled against it every time I played against it, and this is the best solution I could come up with. But the thing is, Mousehold gets access to so many good moves that gives us trouble. Super Fang, Encore. I've even went up against, yeah, like, Offensive Mouse. I mean, that is such a bad crit. You can just KO Oranguru now. And, like, I can't Protect because everything just gets Encored, too. I guess I'll try to Trick Room. Go on in a Golden Go. Oh, man. I don't know. Like, maybe I should just lead Golden Go Amoonguss. I could go, like, Hands Amoonguss as well. I haven't tried that before. There's no way I survived this, right? Yeah, that crit was so bad. I get crit twice. Yeah, that's certainly not going to help when you set up Reflect. But honestly, this is a good example of why using a team like this can be a little bit scary, because crits are going to happen, right? And you can't expect them to just not happen. The downside for me in a matchup like this is honestly almost as bad of a matchup as it gets, in my opinion. And yeah, it's like, when you're up against what's already a rough matchup, when like RNG doesn't go your way, it can just feel super one-sided. That being said, it's still not over yet, but I just don't see a clear approach here at this point. Encore was the main thing. Like, most of the other times when I played Mouse, like, I didn't go up against Encore, so I think that really caught me off guard. But, I don't know. Like, I anticipated Mouse Ape as the lead. Maybe I should just be leading Oranguru straight up. Like, I think in the future, maybe I just go Oranguru plus Ting Lu. Like, I was prioritizing setting up Reflect, but I don't know if Reflect's actually that important. So, I was just a little bit worried about Oranguru Ting Lu against, like, Gothitelle. Like, I don't know, Sylveon. There's no easy lead matchup here, in my opinion, but they did go with the most expected lead, right? Okay, I'm gonna need a miracle to pull something off right now, so I'm just trying to figure out a way to win. Like, the fact that we got double crit to not set up Trick Room makes this, I think, pretty much impossible, but I can still try. I'm just gonna Earthquake Protect and hope they activate my policy on Ting Lu, but yeah, they just Protect. They're playing so well. It's probably Protect and then what, Super Fang into Ting Lu? Wow. This is like a perfect game by my opponent. I think my play there was probably Nasty Plot, Water Terra, Make It Rain. I was hoping they'd activate my weakness policy and then like +2 EQ KOs the Mousehole, but as you can see, it wouldn't have even knocked it out. Yeah, unless like the Annihilate is super slow here, I don't think we really have too much of a shot at this point. That was such a good last turn too. They played this so well, so kudos to them. I'm gonna just go for an Earthquake here and then pivot out into Grim. The reality is if Oranguru is coming in like that and just fainting, not too much we can do. But yeah, I think I need to explore other approaches against Mouse Ape, because this had worked previously when I played against it. Alright, they end up encoring. Rage Fist probably. Well, you know, if we were to crit Earthquake here... Oh my gosh, we do so much damage. Or we take so much damage. Okay. KO's Mouse at least. Still don't really see how we're beating Annihilate though. I think in the future, honestly, maybe I just lead Amoonguss plus Golden Go and just go like a Nasty Plot Rage Powder turn 1. But then, like, where do I go from there, you know? Just Bullet Punch now, Drain Punch. I'm locked into Earthquake. No other decision really to make there. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll try to Parting Shot Scizor here, but we're probably getting Bullet Punched. Yep. But hey, I don't know, if they Drain Punch here and I actually end up critting into Annihilate, that actually is a path to victory. If I survive. I don't even know if I survive. Well, we live on 5 HP. Give me a return crit. Weakness policy is activated now. Because Golden Go can wall Scizor pretty well, I think. And Scizor should be taking, I don't know, like 60-70%-ish here. Wow, that was actually still so much damage onto Annihilate. I guess if Annihilate is somehow slower than Golden Go here, we also have a shot. But Rage Fist is just so strong at this point. I'm just gonna Earthquake and Protect here. Yeah, they Protect Annihilate. I wouldn't be surprised if they double Protect here. But this also reveals that Annihilate's just faster than Golden Go, which is not good. So, yeah, I don't know. I've just really struggled against Annihilate while using this team. And this, like, the Mousehole having Super Fang and Encore. I mean, both of those are pretty standard on those Mouse Ape sets. Like, Super Fang, Encore, Follow Me, Protect is fairly standard. I guess I'll Terra here, just try to make it rain, hope I survive. Actually, I'll just Shadow Ball here. I don't want to decrease my special attack. I don't think it makes a difference, though, because I'm pretty sure Rage Fist just KOs us. They're going to go for Terra. I would expect Fire Terra on Annihilate. Yeah. So with Fire Terra, Annihilate, and Super Fang, Encore, Mousehold, maybe it is just Ting Lu. Lead Ting Lu plus Oranguru. Super Fang is still kind of annoying for that, but I could just, like, I think the main question would be, do I just attack with Ting Lu immediately and click Earthquake, for example? I'm not sure. The main problem here is I can't really deny the beat up. I mean, I guess maybe Amoonguss doesn't have safety goggles, but that's by far the most common item. And Annihilate kind of just outspeeds and outpaces everything. And yeah, Rage Fist is just too strong. So I'm like glad to honestly showcase this game because yeah, I do think Annihilate's a pretty tough matchup for this team. And then two, like I mentioned, you know, crits are super detrimental for this team because it does rely a lot often on screens. And so, yeah, obviously getting back-to-back crit and not setting up Trick Room made things a lot harder. Because if I set up a Trick Room with Oranguru, like Oranguru is actually really good for utility in this matchup because it can Encore as well. And Encore is such a good move, both into Mousehold as well as the Annihilate. But yeah, honestly just didn't consider Encore from the Mousehold very much. And I think that kind of just ruined my game plan from the beginning. It may have been better. Yeah, like I would have been better off just, you know, going for Reflect and then Earthquake immediately on turn 1 and then switching out into Oranguru Earthquake and then just keep clicking Earthquake a bunch, right? Because like boosting up Rage Fist stacks when Reflect is up and Oranguru is out. Like the main thing is like being forced to switch out that Ting Lu made things a lot harder for me. So yeah, I think there's maybe some potential of like Hands just scares me a little bit because like it takes a little bit of time to get going. Amoonguss concerns me mainly because of safety goggles on Mousehold. So yeah, I still haven't found like the best solution into Mouse Safe, but I'm sure there's maybe a better game plan than what I try to go with here. But I think the main thing was, yeah, Encore from Mousehold. You just can't protect in front of you. You kind of have to respect that option. And so maybe in the future I'll try leading just Oranguru plus the Ting Lu and just go from there. Because there's a good chance they will just end up activating the policy at some point. My fear with that is they just go like beat up into Rage Fist onto Annihilate, or sorry, onto Ting Lu. And Ting Lu doesn't really have great recovery from that point on, right? And so, I don't know, maybe an Oranguru, Ting Lu, Amoonguss trio is how I'm thinking about it in the future. But this approach had worked previously when I played against Mouse Ape. They just didn't have Encore on the Mouse, and I was able to successfully get Trick Room up. But yeah, basically everything went wrong in this game, as you can see. But that's the nature of Pokemon, right? You're not always going to have good matchups across the board. And yeah, personally, out of all the archetypes I played against, Mousehold and Annihilate the one that I think I've struggled against the most. And I've seen it, honestly, a decent amount on ladder recently. So it's interesting to see its usage pick back up. Okay, we've got Dondozo here. Moongus is Clear Smog, so it's definitely, I think, going to come out in this matchup. It's kind of designed for Dondozo, which otherwise is kind of a nightmare. The question, though, is how to bring it properly. And also, who else do I want to bring? I think, like, Ban D-Knight here is pretty scary. Can set up screens with Grim. Ting Lu feels pretty good here. Golden Gull's okay. It's okay if they go, like, Dragonite Glamora, for example. I feel forced to bring Amoonguss one way or another. I'm honestly thinking about leading. I just, like, it really stings not knowing the item on Dragonite, like, whether it's banned or lum. This is really tricky. Okay, I'm actually going to go Oranguru, Ting Lu, Amoonguss. And I generally value hands because, like, one of the annoying things about this matchup is the poison spread from Glamora. And so basically in my head, I like the hands because it can Drain Punch. I mean, I guess if I'm making that argument, Golden Gull, like, is immune to poison, but I don't love its matchup into Chi or Flutter Mane here. So let's see what they go with. Chi Flutter. Huh, this is actually really interesting because Ting Lu is actually pretty well positioned right now. Oh man, like if I can get this turn 1 right, I'll be in really good shape, honestly. I'm thinking of Poison Terra here, Trick Room, and Protect. But I could also see them like doubling up onto Oranguru here. So I think another approach is actually protect an Earthquake here. I'm honestly down, because I think if you're my opponent, you have to be really worried about Trick Room. So there's going to be a Terra, okay. On a Flutter. This is pretty risky on my end, I think, but I don't know. If you're my opponent, like, you would expect Ting Lu to probably be Assault Vest and then Terra on turn 1, right? Alright, they just go for... if it's Gleam and Heat Wave, I guess my question is whether or not that KOs. Let's see. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's going to KO. But did they Heat Wave is the question. Or did they Dark Pulse into Oranguru / Overheat? Nice. Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like Dazzle Heat Wave is not consistent there, which is why I was willing to make this play. And I think a lot of players will aggressively target Oranguru down on turn 1. So this was kind of a gamble, but it paid off really heavily. Okay, sweet. They committed their Terra just for basically extra damage onto my Ting Lu. Obviously, it's still far from over, though. Chiyu being Sash is just kind of annoying in general. I wonder if they have Dozo Tatsu in the back. It is. Okay, that's huge. Because I can clear Smog with Amoonguss, and Hands is looking pretty good right now. I think I just want a Terra here. Trick Room. Protect is pretty obvious. I think I'm actually just going to click EQ here. And the logic here is if Chiyu... I'm worried about Chiyu going for, like, for example, an Overheat onto the Oranguru slot, right? Like, let's say they Overheat plus Wave Crash double up into Oranguru and my Ting Lu protects. That's a nightmare. But if I get an Earthquake off here, knock out Chiyu, bring down Dozo low, and then I can just use a Amoonguss to clear Smog Dozo, that's pretty valuable. But they just offer Dark Pulse, okay? Yeah, that does nothing. Nice. Wave Crash into Ting Lu. Okay, that's fine. Protect EQ, or sorry, Protect would have put me in a really good spot, but honestly, I'm okay with this outcome. Yep, we get Trick Room up. I was just really worried about, like, Overheat, Wave Crash doubling up onto Oranguru there. I wanted to be a little bit careful about that. So now I'm happy to bring out Amoonguss. They already committed their Terra. I think I'm happy to click Protect here and then Pollen Puff into Chiyu. In an ideal world, they like protect Dozo, give up Chiyu. If Chiyu switches out into Tatsu, that's fine because, yeah, I can just start Encore and clear Smog. Maybe I didn't need to be so worried about Overheat Wave Crush. I'm not even sure that KO's Poison Terra Oranguru, quite frankly, given how little Dark Pulse did. Ideally, Dozo protects here because then I can just Encore that slot. Nice. Let's see if Chiyu protects as well. Okay, yeah, that's fine. The right play for them here, by the way, is to switch out, but the reality is now I can use Clear Smog is so essential in beating this, basically. But I should be pretty well positioned. This seems like such a weird setup right now, right? But now I can just go for Encore and Clear Smog. Or sorry, I want to click Pollen Puff here because I don't want to reveal Clear Smog yet. So they should switch out into Tatsu here. Yep, but now this is exactly why we have Encore. I'm willing to, like... No, I don't need to play it safe here, right? Because... Or sorry, I want to play it safe because let's say I am like, okay, like, you're definitely going to switch on a Tatsu and I'm like, Spore into the Dondozo slot, and then the Chiyu just gets a free Heat Wave off. That's a complete nightmare for me, right? Okay. But essentially, like, this trap is impossible for them to break through. So I just need to make sure I don't misplay right now. But having Encore and Trick Room and Spore is just, like, you know, the most deadly combination. My main question is whether or not they're oblivious. 2 turns of Trick Room. And 2 turns of Encore. So you know what's interesting? With this being 2 turns of Trick Room, this guaranteeing, I can actually reverse Trick Room right now and then set it up again, which is pretty cool. Yeah, so they protect here. And this just basically fully refreshes Trick Room for me. So it's going to take a little bit of time to get to where I want to go, but I should be pretty well positioned. It's just a little bit annoying because obviously the duo I have on the field right now doesn't actually do damage, but that's okay. Just got to make sure we sequence this correctly. So last turn of Encore, it has to protect. Now I can just set up Trick Room again and click Spore. We'll see if they get the double. It doesn't really make too much of a difference, I think. We'll Spore, we'll clear Smog, burn out Hands, and Hands plus Amoonguss should clear this. I'm mainly curious if it's Oblivious or Unaware, because if it is Oblivious, then we can actually just Swords Dance a bunch as well, but I'm not sure it's honestly necessary. Cool, Protect fails. Your Spore. And here's Trick Room. Okay. Encore ends. I'm happy to just switch out into Hands now, honestly, and just clear Smog into Dondozo. No more boost for you. You have to take a turn of sleep. We have a full set of Trick Room up right now. She revealed Dark Pulse. And only Dark Pulse so far, as well as Protect. So probably, I don't know, it's normally Heat Wave and Overheat. Okay, take a turn of sleep. There's leftovers, yep. Three turns of Trick Room left. So I'm happy to just Thunder Punch now. And Pollen Puff into it. Okay, Pollen Puff for a little bit of damage. Thunder Punch for a lot of damage. Continues to stay asleep. Ideally, we want to sequence this in a way that I knock Dondozo out and then Spore Tatsugiri immediately. I don't know if Pollen Puff KOs this. Like 2 Pollen Puff KOs this. Because I could also Swords. Basically, like, right now, if I double up into this... Well, suppose there'd be still one more turn of Trick Room, and I can just Spore. I'm just worried about them then double protecting. Because I don't know the Tatsugiri item here, right? We haven't confirmed it. Yeah, so I'm going to intentionally not pick up the KO here. I'm going to go Swords Dance and Pollen Puff. They try to protect. Cool. Actually, I think the right approach... Hold on. Let me actually think about this. I think the right approach is to set up Trick Room again. No? I guess my fear is they feign from Wave Crush. But I think, like, Detect here, switch Amoonguss out into Oranguru works. Because if we get Trick Room up again, we definitely win this. And, like, even if we were to crit Earthquake or Wave Crash right now, I don't think it's too much of an issue. Because, yeah, if we get Trick Room up again, then it's just, you know, Drain Punch, Instruct, Drain Punch. Yeah, so they wake up. They try to protect. Works for me. Yeah, so now you need a crit this turn on Oranguru, right? So Clear Smog is so essential to beat Dondozo. Trick Room ends, and Encore as well. +2. So we can just Thunder Punch now into you and Trick Room with you. And they just Earthquake. Yeah, you would need a double crit right now. And even then, I'm not sure you KO. Beautiful. So, yeah, this shows like a really interesting approach in beating Dondozo, right? Like basically saying, you know what, you're trapped in Encore, Spore, Clear Smog, and Hands, and them committing their Terra. Kind of add all of that up, and it's a really interesting solution into a difficult problem. But in this game, we set up Trick Room so many times, right? So, there's Chiyu. Four turns of Trick Room. We know Sash is on Chiyu, actually, so this should be Scarfed, I'm pretty sure. I guess it could be Citrus, theoretically. I'm down to just Drain Punch you and Instruct you. And they end up forfeiting. Perfect. Yeah, I realized earlier I was saying, well, we don't know where the Sash is, but we did see it on Chiyu. So, yeah. Yeah, I think this game highlights the strength of Clear Smog Amoonguss, right? And yeah, I think like one thing that I've noted is that the usage of that has actually increased a lot. I lost against it a bunch while using this team, and so, but it's really valuable into Dondozo since so many of them have given up Substitute. So the usage rate I checked, I think, is like kind of like around 25 to 30% of what Amoonguss is, because, you know, when you run Clear Smog, you have to give up one of Spore, Rage Powder, Protect, and Pollen Puff, and that's such a good moveset. But Clear Smog is pretty essential, because actually beating Dondozo is a nightmare for this team otherwise. It's really hard, right? Because like, the Dondozo is just boosted, but once you get rid of the boost, you kind of just trap them in and they can't do very much, and you can sequence things in a way to set up Trick Room like I did in this one. So, yeah. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so hopefully it's opened your eyes to the power of Oranguru in this format. Had a blast with it, so thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll catch you all next time. All right, peace.